Hello, welcome to this week's episode of Art Like Everything Else, the podcast where we use art to talk about literally everything else. This week, I'm going to be talking about passion, and so just kind of what that's like, and a bit of how to what even just like refinding that for yourself might look. So I'm going to use two pieces of art for that, and let's hop right into our first work of art. Alrighty, so for our first work of art, I'm going to be talking about the movie Chef. So this movie was written and directed by Jon Favreau, and it was released in 2014. You like a 100% spoiler-free description. I'm going to read it, and it is as follows. So this is straight from IMDb. If you're ever wondering where I'm getting these movie descriptions in my podcast or show descriptions, I'm typically looking on their IMDb. So with that being said, Chef is about when Chef Carl Casper faces a career crisis, he hits the road to rediscover his passion. And so this is a really, really good movie. If you want a 100% spoiler-free watch, I recommend you go watch it now and then just come back whenever you can. But I do not plan to spoil anything terribly much. I'm just going to only talk about the parts of the movie that are pertinent to today's conversation. So with that being said, I'm going to hop right into that. If you would like to skip ahead, feel free to do so. So, we are going to be talking about just briefly about this movie. So, the movie Chef, released in 2014, it's a really good movie. Um, I'm not going to say surprisingly so. I was surprised that I enjoyed it as much as I did. And so, the movie follows Chef Casper, who obviously he's a chef, and he wants to do really cool things with food where he's working he's not allowed to experiment in the way that he likes because of course for some people, especially I'm assuming restaurant owners, it's about making as much money as possible. And Casper, he's a chef because he loves being a chef. But his partnership with the restaurant owner doesn't allow him to kind of be a chef in that capacity that he wants to be in. It's just like cook these fan favorites and do not go beyond that. And then he sort of gets into it with the food critic. That's not really pertinent to today's conversation, but in case that entices you to want to go watch it, definitely go do that. But he gets into it with the food critic. After getting into it with that food critic, he ends up he finds himself having to figure out a way to do things for himself again. And he ends up opening a food truck. And so we see him as he's um, working on this food truck and getting it up and running and working and feeding people the creations that he kind of got to come up with himself. We see him sort of finding and becoming passionate about cooking and being a chef again because he's given the freedom to explore and create the way that he's always wanted to create, especially as a chef. And so it's really fascinating. And the reason I chose this particular movie for today's conversation is because sometimes we are nothing but hop, skip, and a jump away from the path that we actually want to be on. So, like Chef Carl, he was already a chef, but he wasn't a chef to the capacity that he wanted to be in. I'm going to talk about that a bit more in today's conversation. When we get to today's conversation, I have another piece of art I'd like to talk about. And so let's hop right over into that. Alrighty, so for our next work of art, we're going to be talking about the short film Canvas, was released in the year 2020. So this movie, short film, was written and directed by Frank E. Adley III. So if you would like a 100% spoiler-free watch of this short film, feel free to pause here and go watch it. It's only 9 minutes, so it's not terribly long. It is really, really quickly, and it's done very beautifully. But with that being said, it is going to be a bit hard to not spoil aspects of this story, considering it is only 9 minutes. Um, so if you like to watch it without just only hearing my voice kind of describing some of what's going on in this short film, definitely go and watch it. With that being said, I am going to talk about it, and it is hard to not sort of spoil some of this short film because there's not as much material in the short film as there would be in like a feature length film. So yeah, that being said, this short film was done beautifully. I honestly, this is a short film I go back and rewatch quite often. Like I decided to talk about it because I feel like this is definitely an aspect of the conversation when it comes to passion and rekindling your passion. I feel like not nearly enough people sort of talk about. Um, but I wanted to kind of make sure this was a part of that conversation. But this is probably definitely one of my favorite short films that I kind of revisit. And so this short film follows a grandparent who recently experienced loss. As a result of that loss, he finds himself not wanting to create anymore. And so, as a result of not creating, you sort of see him in isolation and alone. Then he's visited by his granddaughter, is into creating kind of like how he used to create, but he still hasn't been able to kind of like find himself wanting to create. And so, like, he is inspired to create again by his granddaughter. And it's a really beautiful short film, and I definitely recommend everyone watch it. It's only 9 minutes, and it's so poignant, I believe the word is, to how oftentimes we are creative or we do have the passion and we're going and going after that passion. And then something happens in our lives that shifts the perspective of everything. And just kind of like how with that shift in perspective, some everything changes and it becomes so much harder to pursue something that you were actively pursuing for a while. And I want to elaborate on that more in today's conversation. Let's have that conversation. Righty. So today's conversation, she really wanted to talk about passion and like refining that passion and what that might look like. Because honestly, it will look different for everyone because what you're going after or like how far removed you are from what it was you're doing is going to be different. So, like in our movie Chef, Carl was nothing but like a hop, skip, and a jump away from what it is he was really passionate about. Like he really wanted to be a chef who created his own thing. He was already a chef. So like he was cooking, he just wasn't cooking in the way that he wanted to. And that can sometimes be the case for a lot of people. I'll be honest and say that like that was kind of the case for me at one point in which like I was creating things and I got the chance to create and write about things, but I wasn't writing about the things that I wanted to write about. I wasn't creating things in the way that I wanted to create them. I was simply creating and writing and doing things. They weren't to the standards that I wanted them to be. And so sometimes it's easy to fall into, well, I'm doing something similar to what it is that I want to do. So that's good enough. But it doesn't have to be good enough. You're allowed to not only seek your passion partially, you can go after everything you want with full force and desire and achieve those things. Because doing anything half-assed is going to get tired rather quickly. It's going to get suffocating pretty quickly because the total capacity in which you know you would be able to enjoy something is just not there. And so we saw that with Carl. And even though he was a chef at a high end restaurant, he was known for making delicious food. And he had the skill and the desire and the ability to use all of this like elaborate equipment to make these delicious meals. He was still told by like the restaurant owner, he was like, you can only work within these specific confines that I allow you to work. I do not want you experimenting with new food. I do not want you like tracking or um, not abiding by the menu that I set. And so he wasn't allowed that creative cooking, like culinary, that he always enjoyed and he always kind of wanted to do until he decided to go and do something on his own, which he did with the food truck. And then sometimes in other cases, we are passionate about something and we are pursuing it to the capacity that we enjoy it and we want to do it. And then something happens and we are suffocated or drowned by the grief or we're simply just overwhelmed by the grief and the feelings and the emotions brought on by this other thing that we forget or we are afraid of continuing or resuming the passion we might have once had. We have to find a new sort of new reason to pursue what it is we wanted to pursue. And we saw that in Canvas with the grandfather lost his partner and as a result did not did not want to paint or create anymore. He hid away all of his art supplies and avoided creating anything ever since he was living alone again. And it wasn't until his granddaughter sort of reminded him why he enjoyed it, what it was that he enjoyed about creating, that he was able to continue to pursue creating and painting as he did in the short film. And it's really important that we not only create and we pursue and have this passion, but also recognize when that passion is put on a back as a result of something else. And so, say that because I also really recently that came across a blog post on it's on a website called Art Effects. And the artist name, well, the blogger's name is Liana. And I was reading about this because I like to read. Yeah, I just like to read. I'm not even gonna like super duper elaborate. But this article or blog post was released in 2022, and it's titled "Reconnecting with Your Passion," which honestly is very apt for today's conversation. In this article, she's talking about like she's expressing a similar experience I had, where she was like, "Sure, I've always wanted to be a like an artist, and I've been passionate about art." And like she was the job she was working at. She was like, "Yes, I was doing something sort of art related in that job, but it wasn't to the full capacity that I wanted to do that I would have considered myself to be an artist." And it's a really, really cool sort of blog post about her not letting what it is she actually enjoyed become just a hobby. And so, like, we saw that even you can see that in movie Chef actually, in which that like even though Carl is a chef and he gets to cook all the time, he's only allowed to cook a specific way in at the restaurant. And then at like he you see him experimenting and making all of these really elaborate meals at home. But he's not able to kind of bring that sort of creativity into his workplace. And it takes a toll on him. You can sort of see that um, he's wanted to do something really cool and be experimental, but was just not allowed that freedom. Like he wasn't but a hop, skip, and a jump away from what it was he actually wanted to do, but he was still basically not able to be his true passionate self because as a result, like even though he was cooking, because he wasn't allowed to do it at its full capacity that would make him happy, he was becoming more or less passionate about being a chef in general. Like it was he was becoming almost robotic about something that he was actually truly really passionate about. making good food and enjoying good, and that can happen. You can be really passionate about something, and even though, like, you're sort of partially removed from that thing, you're doing some of the aspect of what it is you wanted to do. You're not being allowed to do the entire thing, and so as a result, you start to lose passion for the thing that you actually enjoy doing. And that can not only can it sneak up on you, but it can deter you from, like, actually pursuing what it is you want to pursue. And so in the short film Canvas, actually the big thing that deterred the grandfather from creating again was grief. But grief is not the only deterrent from you pursuing your passion, even if it was something you were already doing or even sort of closely related to doing. You can also be burnout, which could be what happens when you're like only pursuing your passion sort of in this half-assed way. You could very well become burned out because you're not like pursuing and doing things in the way that you actually want to do them. And so it's really important that we not let our fear sort of deter us. And we also kind of have to just learn to recognize when we are being deterred, when there are options. Because I'm sure the grandpa in Canvas recognized that he wasn't painting again and he sort of knew why he wasn't painting again, but he didn't remember why painting was sort of so important to him until he was reminded. So sometimes it might be important to just have those little reminders around for you to remember why you're being passionate. Like, why are you pursuing what it is that you're pursuing? Why does this thing make you happy? What about this gives you joy and fills you with the desire to want to continue to do this thing? And honestly, maybe even what could stop you. So I challenge everyone listening to this who wants to or has something they are really, really passionate about doing. I challenge you to take out a piece of paper or make a note and write out why you're really passionate about something. Why are you pursuing what it is you are pursuing? Like, take notes on all of these things. Why are you passionate about this thing? What about this thing brings you joy or drives this desire to do this thing? And then also, after you've written all that down, below it, or maybe even to the side, if you wrote everything in like a single column, write out what could stop you. And then after writing out the things that could prevent you from doing the thing that you desire to do the most, write out that. And after writing those things down, write your fail-safe plan for each of those things. So maybe I'll give an example for myself. Burnout. So maybe burnout might cause me to delay or not 100% pursue what it is I want to do. I'm going to create a plan for how to address burnout or how to address or not allow myself to be burned out. Like, just things of that nature. So write out, and that way you have everything in front of you. And with everything in front of you, it might be a lot easier to kind of continue to pursue that passion because you have that back. You know what's gonna if say if grief happens, something that caused you a great deal of grief, you feel yourself unable to do it. Do not be afraid to also put on in there, reach out to my community, be comforted by my community, things of that nature. Because we're not in this world alone, and that is something I definitely want to emphasize. Is that like just because you're making this plan about something that you're passionate about, you do not have to pursue this passion alone. You're allowed a team of supporters, you're allowed a team of people who are in your corner, even if they're not actively participating in the thing you're passionate about. Like maybe they're not also artists in the same way, same capacity that you're an artist. They are simply there to support you. They too can be a part of that journey, too can be a part of that support system that allows you to keep going. That is very important. So maybe, just maybe, being your most passionate, rekindling whatever passion you do have for the things you desire, two can be in art. In art, like everything else. Alrighty, last and certainly not least is today's all moment. So for today's all moment, I'm actually going to be talking about the song "These Hands" by Sam Henson. So this song was released in 2016 on the Sound Experiment 2 project by Sam himself. And this is absolutely one of my favorite songs. I'd probably put it on like consider it to be one of like my affirmational songs. Because the song just talks about creating his future, creating his life, his masterpiece, and doing it with his own hands. Um, so like he doesn't explicitly say future, but that's sort of how I interpret it to be about. It's like the chorus is like I'm working on my masterpiece and I'm making it with these hands. This fate is not my destiny, so I'm shaping it with these hands. And like I'm giving and giving my all. I give till I can't give no more. I'm working on my masterpiece and I'm making it with these hands. And beautiful song, absolutely affirmational for sure, me at least. And I feel like it's very pertinent to today's conversation in which that like being and pursuing your passion is about creating what you consider to be your masterpiece, your magnum opus that is your life with your own hands. And this song encapsulates that. And something else I love about this song is that like it also talks about embracing the journey of pursuing that masterpiece. So like in one of the in verse 2, it says there's beauty in progression and no hope in fear. You can't keep me in the same position. I refuse to stay here. And I always learned my lesson, but I don't mind. I'll be all right. I'll be just fine. And in that verse, it sort of reminds me actually of now that I'm thinking about it about Chef Carl from the movie Chef, in which he refused to stay in the same position to he refused to stay a chef that isn't allowed the creative freedom that he's always desired and is what drew him to being a chef in the first place. He didn't let that keep him there. And he is pursuing what it is he wants to do most. And he's making the masterpiece that is his life. That is being a chef that can create and do things that he wants, his masterpiece. And he's doing it with his own hands. And it's just so cool. And this is just such a lovely song. I highly recommend you listen to it. I listen to it every day. You don't have to listen to it every day. Honestly, it is a feel good song. I personally listen to the Oliver Nelson remix, but both versions of the song are really, really good. And that's all I have for today's episode. If you have any songs or movies or things you watch to sort of um, invigorate, say invigorate. I'm not trying to say invigorate. Um, anything that like compels you or influences you to inspires you to keep going or keep being passionate or keep persisting something, let me know in the comments. I would love to not only know those things, but also watch those things because I like being inspired. And if it's something that inspires you, maybe it'll inspire me. And I'd like to find that out. So drop those things in the comments. And if you'd like to follow my personal account, The Lovely Infinite, on TikTok, Twitter, and IG, TheLvyLyinFinite is also on the screen if you'd like to follow Art Like Studios. That is also on the screen. So it's Art Like Studios. That's going to be where all my podcasts are and any other creative projects I'm doing. If you'd like to be a part of my art collective, is the CMP Collective. You can follow us on TikTok and Instagram at the THECMP Collective. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.